So, talk to me about what your feelings were on Monday at the UCISD school board meeting. Before that meeting even started, there was a big show of support outside for Dr. Harrell.
I wanted to get there early, because I found out that there was going to be a lot of people supporting Dr. Harrell, and wanted to get there early because I just didn't want any confrontations or anything like that. But when I finally did look out, people were telling me that there's a lot of people, so I finally did look out, and I saw the amount of people that were out there, and I recognized a lot of my friends that were out there, a lot of people that work for the school district that were out there, and I was confused, and I couldn't understand because this has been going on for such a long time that I couldn't understand why they hadn't been involved before Monday, why they waited so long to come out there and show support for Dr. Harrell, but not actually question what he had done in the past, right? I mean, you go out there and you're basically acknowledging the fact that he's a nice guy, but where's the accountability to that? We're a small community. A lot of us are somehow connected to each other through families and friends and stuff like that. So you're discouraged when you see that. I saw the families in anguish. I saw them hurt. I saw the pain. I saw that they were distraught. And it takes a lot for the families, each and every one of them, to get up there and speak from the heart and try to convince the panel that hasn't done anything for them. And every time they go to bat, they're let down. And they leave it all on the table, and then they come back. And then to walk out and see the people out there, see the friends, see the teachers that used to work with Irma and Eva, that's hurtful. And then you get the phone call, and they tell you what they're going through, their emotions. You want to get broken? Hear them out on a personal basis. Maybe then you begin to understand what they're going through. And so that's the stuff that we had to live in and day out, day in and day out. And these are people that obviously saw their families, the impact that the bullet had on them. They're shaken, they're broken. And to have this kind of division, you look out the window and you see what I would consider community leaders. I consider them, people that have been established, people that have been in the system, so to speak, for such a long time. Where have you been to try to solve this thing? This was not about, that what's right or what's wrong. The facts were there in front of you. You had 21 people that didn't come home. 21 people that didn't come home, and yet you still couldn't find your way to the meetings. You can't tell me that you were busy every single day, every single time. You could have been there for them. It's not enough to say that you're Uvalde strong. It's not enough to go to the funeral home. It ain't enough to go to the cemetery and give your condolences and sit there and cry with them. But when they need you the most, you can't deliver for them, can you? That upsets me the most. They're broken. They can't have their children back. All they want is peace. All they want is justice. All they want is answers. And you can't get it. And then you have the people criticizing you for what you're doing because you speak on behalf of your child. Unacceptable. Unacceptable.
We have been to nearly every single school board meeting. I mean, you've been to every single one since the shooting happened. I think we've only missed one. And I've never seen a crowd of people like that until Monday. And that was for Dr. Harrell, not for the 19 children and 2 teachers.
Beyond comprehension, beyond understanding. It's something that you walk out and you see it, and I'd like for somebody to explain to me what crossed your mind when you decided to get in your car, drive all the way to the school board meeting location, sit there and chant as the families are walking through, and you don't give your condolences? Where have you been? You got your priorities all wrong. It's okay to support Dr. Harrell, but don't forget about the families.
It seems a little tone deaf.
Absolutely. I think they somehow attribute that Dr. Harrell is their savior, that they attribute that because he holds the title of a doctor, and he's been with the district and his family's been with the district all their lives, that is your saving grace, that somehow you're going to answer at the end that you basically ignored the facts, but you chose to go with somebody that's been in the district for 31 years, a family that's been established. You know, I just, you know, every time that they speak, it's exactly what happens. It seems like no one listens. There's no acknowledgement. They simply go on to item number 3. They thank you for getting up and speaking. That's common courtesy. But where are the following words? Words of compassion, empathy, understanding. It doesn't cost you anything. 5 seconds maybe, 10 seconds at the most. But you can't even go there. It doesn't matter what kind of education you have or where you come from, or whether you're the nurse or you're the police officer, you're on the school board, or you're ex-military. At all levels, the most fundamental things that you could do is listen to the people, acknowledge what they're telling you, and do something about it. You got to begin somewhere.
Did you watch Dr. Harrell's face at all on Monday while Kimberly Rubio was speaking, while Irma Garcia's sister was speaking? Did you watch his face, his reaction while he was listening to that?
I looked several times. I looked at his face, but it's the same face that I've always seen.
What is that for people who haven't watched?
It's a face of someone that seems like he's hearing you, but he's not listening. It seems like it's just empty inside. It almost seems like he's in shock, that he can't grasp the idea that the family members are standing before him asking the most fundamental questions, the most basic things that they could ask are answers, accountability. And he sits there, and he sits there, and he just, like he depends on the president of the school board just to say next, number 3, number 4, and then he goes on to the next item on the agenda. It's disheartening, discouraging. But there is one thing that they lack, and that's called leadership. A true leader, it doesn't matter if you're the president of the board or you're Dr. Harrell or whatever, if you're the janitor, whatever, you could simply go up there and step up to the plate and acknowledge what's going on. But you can't even do that.
There's people who, because the families have reiterated, we never asked for him to retire. We never asked for him to step down. There's people in the community that say by criticizing him, that's what you were doing, asking him to step down. What would you say to those people who suggest, well, without saying it, the families did ask for it?
I think those were unspoken words. I think that the families understood that there's going to be some kind of accountability. We mentioned that at the beginning. You are the CEO of the organization. It eventually may roll up to you if you don't handle this right, if you didn't take care of the situation in the past. It is a tough thing to process, right? You're asking for accountability, but you almost, because you like the man, you almost are naive to the fact that it's going to cost him his job. The writing was on the wall a long time ago. He didn't take care of the situation, the business beforehand, the day of, and after the trauma. He just couldn't handle it. He lacked a characteristic called leadership. And that is where you take a situation of this magnitude, of the crisis, and at different levels you begin to get the community together, make them understand each other, right? And make them work together towards a peaceful outcome. And what did he do? He ignored it. He watched everybody. He watched the entire just basically divide. And some people ask me if it was divided based on race, based on a situation like that. That's a tough thing to answer and to acknowledge. But if you look out the window, don't let me be the judge of that. Look with your own eyes and what you see.
Well, I do want to bring that up because it was blatantly obvious. If you look on the outside who was cheering for Dr. Harrell and chanting for him as he came through, it was majority white faces. If you look inside the actual boardroom, the people who are waiting quietly and have been there consistently, it's majority brown faces.
Right.
Is that something that is historic in the community of Uvalde?
It is. It is something that we chose to ignore. It is something that we basically accepted throughout the throughout the times. It's something where you, as a young person, we're told, do not question authority. They know best. It is tough. The toughest thing to do is to acknowledge what you see, right? The easiest thing to do is to ignore it. But you have to look with your own eyes. You have to see what was out there. You have to ask them. You have to go out there and ask the people that were out there, why weren't you inside? Maybe they'll tell you, because the people in there don't really count. They're not as important as my own child, as my own family. It's a tough thing to say, but you got to be realistic. You got to be a realist. You got to understand. You got to see the facts for what they are.
That's something Brett even brought up at the school board meeting. If this was 17 white kids, he thinks the outrage would be different. Do you agree with that?
I think there's a possibility. And again, I go back to, it's hard to say that, right? Because you want to believe that it doesn't exist, but it could be there. But if you took, maybe it's not just the race, maybe it's something that the financial, the economy, the economics of it, right? They're not, I believe the word is affluent. And so if you took a lot of Hispanics or minorities in general, right, and you took them into an environment where they're making a lot of money, the people are, they're pretty, they have good jobs and making a lot of money, maybe it wouldn't be the same. Because what do they have? It's called, they have resources. They have the ability to hire attorneys, they have the ability to push back, they sit on the board, different things. But, it's pretty obvious what you saw out the window, when you looked out the window, as you were walking in, the families. And there's really no disputing it, just acknowledging the fact, what you could see out the window.
Absolutely. What happened on Monday inspired you to write a letter to the editor at the Uvalde Leader News. And a lot of your letter surrounds around wording, leadership, nice. There's two different distinctions there. What actually qualifies for a superintendent? I don't know if you want to read part of your letter and talk about what inspired you to write that.
Well, what inspired me to write that was I saw a lack of leadership throughout, the school board, the community, and then I began to ask questions of what I would consider a leader, former principals or principals and current staff. And I asked them a simple question, right? Did you at any time give them honest feedback? Did you tell them that the world was crumbling? Did you tell them that the foundation was cracking? And the answer was no. And I go, so it sounds to me like you let the families down. You let Dr. Harrell down. The one that you admire the most, you let him down because you couldn't save him. And now you're out here. I spoke with 2 principals. You're out here now. What happened all this time for 4 months? You couldn't have taken the voice of the parents and somehow conveyed them so that Dr. Harrell and his administration could understand this? Maybe we don't speak the right language, the right vocabulary. Maybe we look different. I don't know. Maybe we just couldn't connect. Wrong day, whatever it was. But you couldn't come in and help Dr. Harrell, and you couldn't help the families. And now look where we're at. So you failed them as well. You failed the community and you failed the families. I'll read a little bit about my letter.
Yeah, please.
If it's okay with you. Get my glasses here for a second. I basically on my letter point out the obvious. And the obvious is that the people are supporting someone that has shown how he would handle a situation like this. He wouldn't take into account where you were that day and how your family's doing. He wouldn't call. Hell, he wouldn't even have his staff call the families, because that's what's going on right now. And I state the obvious in my letter, and I said, I'll remind these same supporting employees in the community that if Dr. Harrell had chosen to stay at UCISD, and with a future tragic event happening again, you would be directly impacted. You would know the outcome. And what I'm telling you by that is that you would get replaced. Look what happened to the teachers. No dignity. He couldn't even investigate it so that the families could bring closure. So I tell you, by supporting him, you're basically acknowledging the fact that if this were to ever happen on his watch again, your families wouldn't get the answers that they deserved. You, my friends, would be replaced, just like Irma and Eva got replaced. As simple as that. The children can never be replaced. Eva and Irma were good people, good teachers, sacrificed a lot of time, their own money, and stuff like that, just like all you guys. But you just remember what happened on this case. They had no value according to Dr. Harrell and his administration. Zero value. They simply just moved on. We'll never move on. But it's a lesson to be learned. Do not trust somebody just because they tell you that they're a leader and because he's a nice man. Don't have confidence in someone like that.
Do you feel his actions have shown he doesn't have the leadership quality necessary to lead his community out of this time of tragedy, the leadership qualities needed to initiate an investigation after a tragedy like this happens?
It's evident. He's shown that he lacks that most important quality. You know, being a nice man does not make you a good manager. Being a nice man just simply gets people to like you. But that doesn't make you someone that people are going to follow you. See, what happens when you're a nice man, people tell you what you want to hear. People don't want to challenge you. They control your actions day in and day out. And you simply sit back and they tell you what a great man you are. But they're lying to you. All these people lied to him, to Dr. Harrell. So I'm glad that he's eventually going to retire. I hope that they don't place somebody. I hope that they do a really good job at hiring the next one. He's got a lot of cleaning up to do. He's got to come in and clean the house, hold people accountable, and try to rebuild that trust.
Do you think that if the families had not shown up at every single school board meeting, if they had not requested meetings with Dr. Harrell, protested outside of the central office headquarters, if the families had not done what they have done for the past 4.5 months, do you think the actions against UCISD the police being suspended, Ken Mueller being suspended and early retirement for him, do you think any of those actions would have actually been taken had the families not put that pressure on Dr. Harrell and on the district?
Absolutely not. They would have just basically tallied it up to a mistake. That goes on the mistake column. That cost us whatever on insurance money. And next in line, just move on ahead. But what happened was different here. The families, through love from other communities, through compassion from other communities, through people that phone calls, people that for whatever reason they can't come out, and there's some obvious reasons. There's people that hold jobs and positions that they can't just, but behind the scenes, through people like that, but most importantly through the voices of the children that didn't make it, and through the teachers that didn't make it, those voices were spoken, and they began to crack that foundation, and one by one they began to be held accountable. So it is important that we don't lose focus. It is important that we continue with the message. It is important that we protest. It is important that we challenge the system. We owe it to those innocent lives and those beautiful teachers. That's who we owe it to. We don't owe it to nobody. I don't owe an explanation. I don't owe an explanation to any one of my friends, to any one of my teachers. I don't know an explanation to a lot of people. The only one I owe an explanation to is God and the children that didn't come home that day and the teachers that didn't come home. That is it. At the end of the day, when my time comes and Jesus asks me, did you help them out? Did you help these people out? The answer is simple, right? If the answer is yes, then I hope I get a one step further in. If the answer is no, then let them be held accountable for that. There ain't much to it. It's common sense, you know? I don't understand it, to be honest with you. I don't get it. But I think within time, where people begin to listen and understand, I think, you may not see it now, but I think that it'll build a better community, a stronger community. But you got to have good leadership. The words that we speak now are harsh. They're tough words. And we have to continue doing it. But eventually, once the families begin to get the answers and begin to heal, then hopefully the community, the supporters that were out there, maybe they can get to know us. Hell, we're all neighbors. We're all neighbors. Come to my house. You have my number. You have our phone numbers. Call us up and ask us why we're doing what we're doing. Maybe if you'll understand, you'll join. But
tell me about the emotion that you're feeling. Why are you getting so passionate about this particular part of this?
because I can't speak no more. I saw people, I heard Velma Lozano like ask me, my old friend from high school, when we hadn't seen each other in years, you know, and how she just hugged me. We hugged each other, and she describes her sister, how she saw her sister. She describes her, and she was a mess. She couldn't stand up. She couldn't. It was tough. I saw Jackie's mom at the cemetery as they're basically burying her daughter, asking for forgiveness from the two older children, begging the director not to proceed. The director gets on his knees and he basically stops everything, tries to comfort her, and then he tells her he has no choice, basically. I hear Jackie's aunt, my girlfriend Juanita, tell Jackie, I love you, baby girl. And it was a high-pitched noise. A high-pitched noise. You take those sounds and you take those emotions, it breaks you. You want to get on your knees? That stuff. You should have been out there seeing that stuff. You should have been out there hearing them stories. That's what breaks you. But at the same time, that's what makes you stand up. That's what makes you march forward. And that's what gives you the wisdom and the power and the words, that their words be spoken through you. It ain't us. When you see us speaking out there and saying things, don't misunderstand us. It is not us anymore. It is the children that are in us now. The spirits. It is an army of many. You may see one guy or one girl at the speaking, but don't you misunderstand something. It is the spirits of all these beautiful children that have come together to ask for justice and ask that we bring peace to their families. It's as simple as that.
Kim Rubio tweeted the other day, it's exhausting being on the right side of history. Do you feel that exhaustion?
It is. It is, because you're battling two things. You're fighting for what's right. You're battling the people that don't want to give you the answers. And now it's evident that the people that came out and supported Dr. Harrell, now you have yourself another battle. Now you have a target on your back. And these people that don't comprehend, I suppose, it is exhausting. It is. But what do? Right? Just like in anything you do in your life, except the stakes are higher. What do? You go back and you gather yourself up, you regroup, and then you ask those little spirits, come within me, and I promise you I will give you justice. I promise you I'll give you justice. It's as simple as that. Okay? If you think, I'm going to tell you this, if you think, I'll tell this to any one of my friends, anyone that went to those meetings, if you think that we're going to back down because you did what you did, oh, you got us all wrong. All wrong. You have no idea what's coming. But I'll give you this. Through your actions and what you did on Monday, I welcome it. Because what you did, you shed light on things that had been beneath the surface, and you raised them up. And you let the world see what we're all about. And for that, my friends, I thank you very much. Thank you so much, because you just added fuel to the fire, and you just motivated us. We will swing, we will march, and we will speak until the end, until our very last breath. Maybe tired, maybe we weary, or whatever it is, but ain't no giving up. Not today, not tomorrow.
There's some who are saying, Dr. Harrell, this is another time for you. This is a time for you to say, hey, instead of being so divided over this, over my retirement, let's unite the community of Uvalde and move forward together. Move forward in supporting the families. Do you think he can play a critical role in reuniting this community that seems to have a growing divide?
I don't think he's capable. I don't think it's within him. I think that he's missed many opportunities. I think that probably the biggest opportunity he had was Monday. When all those people were there, he should have just invited them in. He should have just moved it over to the auditorium. He could have just stopped the meeting for a little bit and gotten for us to know each other. There were a lot of missed opportunities that he could have handled, but he doesn't have it. He's incapable of leadership. He's a liked man. He's a nice man. He smiles and he poses and all kinds of good stuff. But not everybody's born a leader. It's unfortunate, he wasn't born with that characteristic, with that trait.
Is there anything else you want to add, Jesse?
The only other thing I want to reemphasize is that this is not about Republican, this is not about Democrat, this is not about brown or white or any other color, any other thing. If you continue to focus on what's important, and that's the child, the children, and the teachers, and let that be your compass, then everything will fall into place. It's the right thing to do, just like Kim said. But we're not going anywhere. We're going to be here till our very last breath, until every single one's going to be held accountable, and the people get the answers that they deserve.